So Netflix managed to do the unthinkable and make a live-action anime adaptation good, which is even more impressive since this was the same studio that made the Cowboy Bebop live-action show, which was pretty bad.
Sounds to me like blackmail.
You're damn right it is, because, Jet, you are black and you are male.
But the studio went on record saying that they took the feedback from Cowboy Bebop and used it to improve on their next project, One Piece. And it's really awesome that the studio was able to do that. So now we got a quality product, and the studio has a major hit on their hands. So really it's a win-win situation. It would be pretty great if other Western studios would learn from their example. One Piece is a long-running anime and manga created by Eiichiro Oda, and the series has been going strong since 1997. It's been wildly successful, so it's not surprising that they would eventually try their hand at a live-action adaptation. Having the original creator on helped a lot too, I'm sure. Nintendo was also heavily involved in the Mario movie this year, so that's probably a major factor in how successful these adaptations end up being. After all, who would better know these properties than the people actually behind them? Before I get into the review, I want to clarify that this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen One Piece yet, I would definitely recommend checking it out first. So here's your spoiler warning. Anyway, One Piece takes place in a world of pirates. Before the start of the series proper, the notorious pirate king Gold Roger is arrested and sentenced to execution. With his last words, he tells the crowd how he amassed this incredible fortune, which he calls the One Piece, and it's up for grabs, you just have to find it first, with their only clue being that it's somewhere in a stretch of ocean known as the Grand Line, which is extremely vague, but it's enough to kick off a whole new pirate era. 22 years later, we're introduced to our main character, a young man named Monkey D. Luffy, who has been dreaming about finding the One Piece and becoming king of the pirates since he was a kid, and he's very determined, but he needs to get a ship, find a crew, and fight his way through a cast of colorful villains just to get to the Grand Line, where even bigger dangers will be awaiting him. The show takes the first several arcs and condenses them into 8 episodes. It cuts out a lot of filler and recontextualizes many aspects of the story, and while it does remove a lot from the anime and manga, I still think this version was pretty solid. The story flows really well, the casting is amazing, and it stays true to the source material, where the changes they made were made to fit the new format, instead of trying to fix things or change things to specifically cater to the Western audience, like other anime adaptations have done. I also really love the soundtrack. A highlight for me was that they played an orchestral version of the original Japanese opening for One Piece in certain areas, like when they first launched the Going Merry. That was a nice touch and an appreciated detail. I do think there were aspects that were handled better in the manga. There were scenes that were either recontextualized or removed, and I was kinda disappointed not to see them here, but I also think they added some really impactful scenes too, and I think it was a really manageable 8 episodes. It was kinda nice to not have to wade through filler, and I think the most important aspect is that it stayed true to the themes and characters of the story. You can tell a lot of love and attention was put into the show, and they went out of their way to really bring Oda's vision to life, including by finding people who would really embody the characters. In an interview, Iñaki Godoy, who plays Luffy, explained how he tried his best to emulate the character, and he noticed that Luffy is a very good listener. A trait like that might not be easy to pick up on because Luffy is very outgoing, loud, and boisterous, but it really is an important trait about his character. Godoy clearly has a strong understanding of this character, and it really feels like Monkey D. Luffy has jumped off the page. The only real problem I had with Luffy's portrayal in this show is that the actor they got to play his younger self has a different accent than Godoy does, which ends up being anachronistic, but that's more of a nitpick. I'm also really impressed with how committed the cast was. For example, Taz Skylar, who plays Sanji, actually learned how to cook and trained to fight with his legs just like Sanji does, which is pretty cool. They could have faked all of that, but they put in the effort, and I think that effort really shines through. I also thought the child actor for Sanji did a really great job. All the child actors were actually really good, but Sanji in particular really sold his performance. Emily Rudd as Nami was a lot more stern and stoic than Nami is typically portrayed, being a no-nonsense and serious character, and at first I wasn't sure how to feel about that, but I actually ended up really liking it, and she really nailed those dramatic scenes that One Piece is known for. Zoro is a man of few words, and he's less animated than he is in the actual manga and show, instead coming off more as the cool loner type, but like with Nami, it really works for him, and he also had a lot of really impactful scenes that really sold his performance as not just an actor, but as really embodying the character of Zoro too. I also liked how they delved into Zoro and Nami's friendship. Then there's Usopp, who in my opinion could have used more screen time, but what we did get was really good. He's probably the funniest character on the show, next to Luffy of course. I really enjoyed his antics and one-liners. Even though his main character trait is being a liar, it doesn't actually hurt anyone, or at least it doesn't hurt anyone but himself. But he was endearing and really likable. I really love the chemistry the crew has with each other. There are moments in the show that we don't get in the manga, where the crew are just hanging out, and it helps flesh out their relationship and show that they're a found family. Although something I admittedly didn't care for was Zoro and Usopp giving up on Nami so quickly. At a certain point, Nami reveals that she's a member of Arlong's crew, and claims she was only using them for Arlong's benefit, but she only does so after Luffy loses a fight with Arlong, and he's about to eat him. She convinces him to throw Luffy into the sea instead, which gives Sanji the chance to rescue him. Afterwards, Zoro and Usopp are pretty much convinced that Nami is evil, despite everything they've been through together.
Don't you guys get it? She's one of them. She's a bad guy.
Luffy still believes in her because he's just such an optimistic character, and Sanji is white knighting her, lucky girl. But I'm surprised Zoro and Usopp would give up on her so quickly after everything they've been through. Nami went out of her way to make sure that Kaya was alright, and to protect her from Kuro. She tried to persuade Zoro into not fighting Mihawk because she knew he would lose, and she was worried about his life. And then when he did lose, she held Usopp's hand for comfort. Then she warned Luffy and the others that the Arlong pirates had arrived and were looking for him specifically, so they should run as fast as they could. I'm just saying, they gave up on her really easily, and then when they were reunited she hugged them, but they had not done anything to defend her that entire time. I understand her ignoring Sanji since she doesn't know him that well, but also the reason she didn't hear his backstory was because she was reading to Zoro to try to keep him grounded to reality instead of, you know, dying. I just felt kind of bad, but I'm glad all of them are friends again. The supporting cast was also pretty amazing. Some characters ended up getting a lot more screen time than they do in the original manga, like Buggy for example. He's a lot more sinister than he is in the manga, but he's also really funny, and I'm glad they kept him around. I think the Baratier arc was my favorite. Mihawk and Zeph were both real highlights of the show. Zeph comes off as a really hard-as-nails guy who doesn't care too much about anything other than his own interests, but then they reveal he's actually a very deep character, and he really sold those dramatic emotional scenes. Also, they actually built practical sets for the show, so all the ships are real, including Baratier, and it's just such a cool location, with so much personality and atmosphere. Despite how much content they cut from the show, it actually is more accurate to the manga in certain areas, like Sanji's backstory for example, which was very dark, but very dramatic. There were aspects that they just didn't really address, like with Kuina's death. I remember when I was a kid, I was watching Toonami, and they were playing the 4Kids dub of One Piece. 4Kids was known for heavy censorship, so when they said that Kuina fell down the stairs and could never sword fight again, I figured that they were just censoring what actually happened to her since she was clearly dead, and they came up with a silly story about her falling down the stairs because it was less dark. So I looked up how Kuina actually died, but it turns out 4Kids only lied about her ultimate fate. She actually did fall down the stairs and die. Oh sure, she survives, but that same thing killed Kuina. In this version, they don't actually specify what killed her, they just say there was an accident and are really vague about it. I guess I can't blame them though, it is kinda silly. They could have at least let her go out with a bang. Like what if pirates attacked and killed her in the invasion? And that's why Zoro hates pirates so much and becomes a pirate hunter. Maybe it'd be too close to Nami's story, but then again it is a world of pirates, so it's not like pirate attacks are uncommon. It is a little disappointing that we don't get the closure of knowing what happened to her, but knowing what happened to her isn't actually satisfying either, so I guess it's fine the way it played out. Here we get a lot more with Kobe than we do in the manga and anime. Originally we didn't see him again until much later, but here he and the Marines are basically the B-plot. It was interesting how he and Luffy were two sides of the same coin but on opposite sides of the law, and I really enjoyed seeing their friendship play out. Kobe also made for a good exposition character, since he spent most of his life with Alvida so he doesn't know much about the world, and it was a natural way to tell us information. Helmeppo also gets a character arc, which was surprising, but I think they did a good job in fleshing him out. I also think him growing alongside Kobe was pretty satisfying to see. I'm sure revealing Garp this early is probably controversial to some fans, but I think it was effective, and it was interesting to see things from the Marines' perspective too. Overall, I'm really happy with what we got, and I hope that One Piece starts a new trend of actually good live-action adaptations of anime, and that other studios can take a lesson from One Piece and be faithful to the source material. Instead of trying to fix what isn't broken, they've already greenlit a season 2, and they're claiming that they're going to be 6 seasons of One Piece, which isn't really something Netflix does, so that's really exciting. If they can keep up this level of quality, I think One Piece can be something that's really special, but that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Have you seen the live-action One Piece? Did you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia XV Legend, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Soundboy00, Owen Wildish, Player Zero, Kitsune Fiora, Lucas Geist, Data Dine Executive, J Draws, Blue Spirit, Bandito Bane, Lil, Meowsers, Sky, Jin KZ, Philip, Stutania, and Isaac Martinez. Thank you all so much for your support, we really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video and like our content, you can leave a like on the video and subscribe, and that part's free. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.